Hi, this is Kath King, a nutritionist and the owner of Osteohealth New Zealand. And today I'd like to talk to you about a common misconception regarding nutrition. And that is that more is always better. So for example, if a small amount of a nutrient in food is good for the body, then large amounts of that same nutrient in supplement form must have an even more profound effect on health. It sounds right, but it isn't. Higher intake of isolated nutrients sometimes is not only not better, it can make things worse. And a really good example of this is calcium. And according to many experts and according to the New Zealand government in the form of the Ministry of Health, women aged 70 and younger need to consume 1,000 milligrams of calcium daily. And then if they're over 70, they need to consume 1,300 milligrams of calcium per day in order to maintain healthy bones. And of course, supplement sellers and promoters of fortified foods tell the public daily that calcium builds strong bones and that supplements are needed in order to get enough. But a growing body of evidence shows that this is actually not the case. In fact, according to a relatively new study, higher calcium intake is associated with an increased risk of fracture risk. And Chinese researchers in this particular study looked at calcium intake and fracture risk in older men and women who were actually eating a mostly plant-based diet, so their diet was pretty good. And the researchers reported that calcium intake higher than 778 milligrams per day or lower than 275 milligrams per day increased the fracture risk for men. And for women, calcium intake higher than 651 milligrams or lower than 248 milligrams increased the risk of fracture as well. So in other words, both very low and very high calcium intake is associated with an increased fracture risk. And the World Health Organization agrees. The World Health Organization recommends between 400 and 500 milligrams per day of calcium, and they state that there is no evidence of benefit at higher intake. In the United Kingdom, the National Health Service recommends 700 milligrams per day. And also the UK guidelines include many non-dairy sources of calcium like green leafy vegetables, soybeans, tofu and nuts that in New Zealand just never kind of feature very highly in people's minds when they think about bone health. Now, United States researchers are starting to change their minds about calcium needs also. In fact, Dr. Walter Willett, who is the chair of the Department of Nutrition at Harvard, at the Harvard School of Public Health, he says that women would be better off if they consumed less calcium. And the recommendation to consume 1,300 milligrams of calcium per day wasn't supported by evidence even at the time that that recommendation was originally established. Instead, researchers hypothesized that taking more calcium would result in higher blood levels of calcium, which would in turn keep the body from releasing calcium from the bones to buffer any acidity. And the researchers really neglected to take into consideration several things, including that nutrient absorption relies on a number of different factors, which include the combination of foods consumed, the health of the gut microbiota, and the overall dietary pattern. And they also failed to consider that when calcium intake is too high, the body actually restricts calcium absorption in order to prevent the depositing of excess calcium in the arteries and the soft tissues of the body, which can be dangerous. And so the amount of calcium or any other nutrient consumed is not necessarily an indication of how much is absorbed. And people who eat a well-structured, whole food, plant-based diet can easily consume enough calcium daily based on their actual daily needs, which I think are more in line with the World Health Organization recommendations of 400 to 500 milligrams per day. And just some examples of that, a medium-sized orange contains 100 milligrams of calcium. A serving of broccoli contains 112 milligrams. And so well-structured whole food plant-based diets, they're also low in protein, and excess protein can contribute to bone loss because we release additional calcium to buffer the acid from the additional protein. And so smaller amounts of calcium from food can result in stronger bones than larger amounts from supplements, depending on what the dietary pattern is. And more really is not better when it comes to isolated nutrients. So I hope that's been helpful for you today, and we'll talk again later. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.